Welcome back to another handsome review with your handsome host. It is I, Jamiel Surita. And today we're talking She-Hulk episode 4. Oh, how time flies. Welcome back. Now we're going to talk about a couple of topics that I have up here about the She-Hulk show. So, we could get into some spoilers and really discuss and dissect the episode a bit. So one of the big things for me was seeing She-Hulk date. I really thought that was something different and cool, seeing an actual illegible superhero. It kind of gave me my Super Ex-Girlfriend vibes. That was a movie that came out around 2006 with Uma Thurman and Luke Wilson. That was a very funny movie, and Anna Faris. She also did a great job in that movie. So now we get to see that in the MCU. Like, what is it like to be a single character or a single person in the MCU? And how would that affect regular people when it comes to superhero dating? You know what I mean? So it was funny to see her date like a couple of losers who didn't care about anything. And then when she became She-Hulk, it became even more apparent where like these guys were superficial, or they were weird, or they were into like some weird like stuff. So I thought that was pretty funny. And then at the end, she got to date someone that seemed really into her. He was like the ultimate woman fantasy. Like this jacked up guy that was sensitive, had feelings, and wanted to listen to her all day and wanted to know who she was as a person. But it's kind of weird that at the end, when she becomes back the regular form of Jen Walters, he kind of drops her. I guess he thought that she's She-Hulk all the time, or they don't really know that too much. So, it definitely was a little sad at the end. And then, you got to see that trope of, oh, the superhero is too busy, so he doesn't get to spend time with his partner. And then it was really funny when at the end of the fight scene the fight when she was trying to help out Wong, more onto that later, she literally lands on top of him and kind of like that stereotypical sexy girl pose. So that was kind of funny. And I heard that in the comic books, they've always kind of sexualized her. So that might have been like an homage to the original She-Hulk character and her arc in the comics. That was not an arc, but, to her past. All right, now onto the Wong cinematic universe. So Wong's cinematic universe was something that really stuck out to me because now this full episode was about Wong as a customer, as a client of She-Hulk's, and how he was trying to sue this magician because he was using the magic from, the real magic, the mystic arts, for cheap tricks. And then they had like this really funny thing I kind of liked where one of the volunteers ended up getting sucked into the portal, ended up in like a place in hell, and then she somehow ended up in Wong's house. And that's how he found out that this guy has one of the portal makers and he was using it to just portal people out of there for his magic shows. So, that was cool to see someone trying to copyright like magic. And then they were talking about like, oh, what's going to happen? What's going to be copyrighted next? Art? And it's like, yeah, that's already been copyrighted. So that was a funny joke. And then, I thought that was a really cool stuff. Wong is very funny. He stands out as his own as a character. Originally, I saw him in the show Marco Polo, which was a Netflix original from a long time ago. He really stuck out there playing the Kubla Khan. And in the MCU, he's doing really great. I feel like he's definitely a standout in Phase 4. I loved him in Doctor Strange. He finally got the Sorcerer Supreme title, which we also saw in Spider-Man mentioned as well. And then it was brought up here. So we're slowly kind of getting to know this character. And I don't mind following him around, similar to like what we saw with Nick Fury in the original one and two phases of the MCU. I don't mind having this kind of one character that becomes a through line through the different movies. So that was fun. I thought that he stuck out. It made the show a little more interesting because you have like this magic aspect to it. Because She-Hulk is kind of like those cut and dry punching characters, but at the same time, she's a lawyer. So then you have like that courtroom drama aspect. So you got to see more of that mixing in with the MCU and how like the MCU could change American law. Because now there's new things to define and to decide whether that should be copyrighted or not. For example, using the mystic arts, which she said could actually endanger people as well. So that was cool. I like the magician storyline. I thought it was very relatable to actually see like what would it be like if like a regular person just caught in that world try to use any of the real magic from the MCU. So you can see how someone would exploit that, for like fame or whatever, like he was doing. But towards the end, it became bad. It went bad on him because that leads to the next topic, the monsters. And, the monsters really started bringing up another topic that I actually want to get into, which is that the She-Hulk show does not have that much action. And to really come to it, you don't really need that much action. I know that's kind of like the trope of what superhero shows are about, but I feel like as long as the drama and the comedy, they really stand up on their own, then the action doesn't have to be as prevalent, which means that they can save some money on the budget because they don't have to make as much action. Although with She-Hulk, you do need to spend a lot of money on CGI in order to make her come to life. You know, and I feel like a lot of the MCU shows, they don't have a lot of like set pieces because of the fact that, you know, they try to keep the budget on a lower price because they have to split up the budget into a whole bunch of episodes on a TV show. Because that's the reason why, if you notice, TV shows always look cheaper than movies. When you're making a movie, you just have to make sure it lasts a 2-hour runtime. So it's not as expensive as splitting up on something into 8 to 10 episodes of like 30 minutes, which could come out to like 4 or 5 hours of TV, you know? So that is something to kind of, I was noticing, is that there's not as much action, not as much like exciting drama in those terms with these shows. They feel more small stakes. But She-Hulk kind of works on that small stake. Although I would love to see her come on to life in the big screen where we can see more of her action. Because I feel like that's what the Hulk is missing. That's the reason why I'm not liking the Hulk as much as I used to. Because the way he fights and stuff, he becomes more conscious about it. You know, as opposed to the Hulk is just like, destruction, 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 and it looks great on the screen. But when you have the Hulk making a joke in the Avengers Endgame going like, oh, look at all that action, it's so gratuitous. And then him like just pull some things so he could blend in. Like, oh, grab this and that. It kind of loses the charm of what the Hulk is. And She-Hulk was always meant to be more like, I guess I would say, Professor Hulk, who you see in Avengers Endgame and in this show make an appearance, you know? So it makes sense. You don't need as much action because the real focus is on her as a human being and the Hulk and kind of like sharing that existence. Because I feel like She-Hulk isn't a monster as much as the Hulk was, where he had his own sentient thought and feeling. Instead of She-Hulk is kind of just like a shell. I think she has more of a shell type of look, you know, where you can still be on Jen Walters underneath it. So I thought that was pretty good. I'm liking the show. You know, it doesn't have that much action, but Wong definitely has brought something to it, bringing a little bit of like the cinematic aspect into it. Although I feel like they may have made him a little too funny for his own good compared to his movie versions. So, you know, if you could tone down the comedy a bit, it would be perfect. But other than that, you know, great action. It was fun. I really liked the human aspect of it where we see her date and stuff because a lot of the superheroes already come preloaded with love interest. Like, why can't we see them have a bad love interest and then kind of move on? Which I have to give props to Doctor Strange for doing that. As you guys know, in my Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness review, he doesn't end up with the girl. And I think that's because he's going to meet someone else. But of course, you don't want it to be like that. Be like, oh, it's not going to work out here because there's some other girl. Because people are always going to think that way in terms too. You know, maybe not everyone's going to get to find love at the end. But even though that is sad to say, we can still hope. And so that's the point of the movies. It's to remind you never to give up. And that you never know what's going to happen. Thank you for watching, guys. Please leave a like, comment in the comment section below. I appreciate you. And I will see you in the next review of She-Hulk, Episode 5.